This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke and Eddie Jones is in San Diego and so will not be joining us today. He was available, but it was going to be about 3 a.m. Australian time, so I gave him a leave pass. Ewen McKenzie, welcome to the program. How has your weekend been, my friend?
Not too bad, mate. Just doing the usual toil, bits and pieces.
Yeah.
You know, weather's been good. I mean, summer's finally arrived. It's autumn, but anyway, it's sort of arrived, and the weather's quite decent. So we're getting January's weather in March.
Now, were you able to catch any rugby over the weekend? I must admit that after the excitement and challenging time that we do have in the Southern Hemisphere watching the Six Nations, I didn't get a chance to watch too much rugby at the weekend, apart from seeing the highlights of Corey Toole race away to secure victory for the Brumbies in Canberra. But did you get to see any of rugby at the weekend?
Ironically, I didn't see that Toole highlight until after, but I'd watched most of the game. I watched a fair bit of the Reds playing in Fiji, and the Waratahs playing as well. So against the Hurricanes. So there was some good games on. Waratahs v Blues. I also watched the Hurricanes play. They're a good side to watch.
For our global audience, again, we don't tend to spend too much time looking individually at the matches in either the Premiership, the URC, or Super Rugby, simply because we don't have enough time to be able to do it. But what is of relevance is there are a number of experimental laws that are being introduced into Super Rugby. And from your perspective, what are you seeing in terms of those experimental laws and how they are impacting the game?
The obvious ones, the crocodile rucks that were being formed before box kicks were made. Crocodile caterpillar. They were they've been noticeably absent, so the speed of the rucks is much faster, and the guys are having to kick from a more precarious position. So there's been the odd charge down, which is good. So that keeps the pressure on the skill level of the halfback. The only thing I noticed is that the halfback tends to step back from the ruck to kick, and I noticed that everyone that's chasing the kick's always offside. They're always in front of the kicker. So no one seems to worry about that, but that's just a noticeable byproduct of that situation. So that's a positive. The other thing that I hear constantly on the commentary is the referee calling 30 seconds in relation to the scrum set. Now, some of the games have been playing in extraordinary heat and conditions, like in Fiji, so it's oppressive, and they are doing the 20-minute water breaks, but they are keeping the tempo of the game up by making the scrums form quickly and getting on with it. So I think that's definitely been a positive. So there's another aspect. I saw the Hurricanes game the other day. I noticed there was a scrum free kick, and you can take the free kick within a metre of the mark. So Roy Gard just tapped the ball and scored under the post. So there's probably maybe something to think about there if the scrum's close to the line, but fundamentally the idea of quick taps I think is good, and I actually made a note on the weekend because for me there's a lot more tap moves in the game than there ever was before, and I think that's interesting, and it keeps the momentum of the game going. And I would love someone to get out there and do some statistics about the quick taps and what that does, because it's in the end, you're looking for unstructured defence and disorganised defence, and that's the classic scenario. If you tap quickly and go, it's a question whether you can organise your attack quicker than they can organise their defence, and I think that there's merit in that. I don't think there's merit in stopping the game and allowing everyone to get organised in defence. So we're seeing more people chance their arm on the quick taps, and I think that's a good thing for the game because it certainly sped it up. And so then attrition comes into the game, you get mistakes in defence, so you get more tries. So I think that's one of the objectives as well. So on the whole, I think there's been some positive moves there, positive evidence of laws being managed well. The other thing that I've noticed is that the yellow cards that were typically last year, every time you saw someone try and intercept a ball and knock it on, it was a yellow card into the bin, mismatched numbers. I've seen a bunch of instances, a couple on the weekend where it happened and the referee just went back and played the previous offence or didn't adjudicate that, just adjudicated as a penalty or a knock-on. And so whether that's the Super Rugby or whether World Rugby has made some sort of decision and told the referees to be more logical about it, I don't know. It'd be great if someone communicated that to the world, but it's clearly noticeably different from last year, where we just saw a procession of people walking off the field who are trying to do positive things on the field. So, I think that's a positive for me.
That's an interesting point you raise, and I have done an interview with Alan Gilpin, as people would know who listen regularly, and that will be published later this week on the 27th of March. And I did raise the issue with him about transparency and about communication from World Rugby. And I don't want to be, Mr. Captain Negative about World Rugby, because I'm not, because I do think that they are by and large doing a very good job. But I think you'd agree with me that on issues like that, the communication would be valuable for the people who follow the game, so as that they understand what in fact instructions have been given to the referees.
I agree. It's almost like no one wants to admit that they're wrong. And if you come out with a public confession or a public change in direction, it's really saying what you're doing before was wrong. And no one seems to want to own that. So It just sort of gets changed in the middle of the night and suddenly we're on a different tangent. And that's what it seems like. And there's just no communication. If I'm just the humble fan watching, I go and I see something and I go, well, hang on, when I was watching the Lions test or when I was watching something else, someone was in the bin for that. And now it doesn't seem to matter. And it certainly doesn't matter under advantage. You can do lots of things under advantage and not get any sanctions at all. So I just think it can only be that. It can only be that no one wants to admit that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Because it just seems to be a positive, let's not dwell on the past. We can't change it. But at least tell us what the objective is. And if they've made a fundamental shift there where they're actually trying to rule things on merit, in other words, the referee gets to make a call, was it a cynical piece of play or whether it was just not even a rugby accident, it's just someone trying to be positive? Because if they get the intercept like Toole does, the score at the other end, everyone's happy as Larry. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So if you get the intercept, you're all right. But if you're slapping it down on the ground and trying to kill the play, which I did see one incident that you could easily argue that would have been yellow card, but it didn't happen. Mm. I'm going, well, something's happened here. Something's changed in the middle of the night and no one's told us. Mm. So, I guess I probably watch more games than the normal person maybe, but there's a lot of avid fans out there who would be probably asking a similar question.
Yeah. And again, it goes to the point, and look, I just think it's perhaps a muscle, that World Rugby hasn't exercised before, and perhaps they don't think that people are interested. But like another example is this Mark Robinson-led review around not so much the laws of the game, but the interpretations of the game and a whole series of recommendations that may or may not be taken to the World Rugby Council in June for decisions about, the shape of the game and, in fact, where it's going. But I can't find anywhere the terms of reference. I can't find anywhere who, in fact, is on that committee. I can't find anywhere detail of what is being investigated and what is being discussed. So again, I don't think anyone's deliberately keeping it away from us, but the interest in the game is so large that people want to know this stuff. I certainly would love to know exactly what it is that they're looking at so I can follow along, because at the moment it's just going to, it's in a black box, and then something will happen in June and we won't have seen any of the debate, the discussion, or understanding, what were they weighing up when they ultimately arrived at that decision. So I think in this day and age, transparency is key. And if we're talking about growing more fans, deepening people's commitment to the game, World Rugby has to commit to a huge amount of transparency in everything that they do. Like, and we were discussing it the other day in terms of the shape of the game. There would have been 90% of the presentations that were made there the other day that would have been perfectly relevant and useful and interesting to most rugby fans. And so we could have streamed the whole thing, and you would have been able to either watch it live or watch it on replay to see what is being discussed. I just think we just have to get there if indeed we're going to grow the game. Because ultimately, this podcast has one mission, and that's how do we help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world? And greater transparency has got to be a part of it.
Oh, no, there's no question about that. I don't see the transaction. I don't see it being a proper transaction when you're asking fans to invest, and that invest in time, invest their dollars, turn up to watch things at venues and things like that, and to take out subscriptions for television to actually sit there and literally watch the game. If you're asking for that level of investment, you need to be able to background. I mean, what is fundamentally a complex game? Like we've got to keep understanding that rugby is a fairly sophisticated game with a lot of laws and a lot of interpretation. And it's not easy for people just to sort of pick it up and become a fan overnight, like it is maybe some other sports. So you've got to make it easier for the people, not harder. And I feel, as I say, I'm watching a different game this year and no one said anything. And I get it, it's only bits and pieces of the game, but that actually adds to the beauty of the game and the actual contest. And if there's a reason that the contest is better or the games are better, it's because something might have changed. And so we need to understand, we need to be on that journey of what changed. So at the moment, it's left to idiots like me to try and then sort of come up with this, just to spot things and go, hang on, that was different, whatever. And then so we have this conversation, and then other people go, oh, yeah, I noticed it. And suddenly we go, oh, something has changed. We didn't know.
Because clearly to me also, during the Six Nations, there was a shift in the way that the referees were controlling the game. Because the last two rounds of the Six Nations were, for mine, some of the best refereeing that we've seen, or some of the, the way that the referees worked with the assistant referees, worked with the TMOs, meant that we had these incredible entertaining contests. And I think we've just about got it right. But again, it's a journey that we are not on to understand just exactly what those instructions are and those sophisticated instructions or sophisticated changes that may take place from week to week.
The journey is, for us to talk about it, and then the UK headlines pick up something from that Eddie said, and that becomes a headline. And so you got to do it with a stick, and so that's the journey at the moment, where it should really just be an organisation-led journey, not one where you've got pundits out there trying to not pick the game apart, but just try and making positive suggestions. We're all sitting here trying to talk about the different sanction things. Well, they've tidied it up. They seem to have tidied it up. Well, hopefully it just continues. We'll see in the Nations Cup, but the Nations Championship, that hopefully that just continues. But it's been positive the last period of time.
And again, I don't think there is anything deliberate about it. I think culturally, it's an organisation that has often done things a particular way, whereas we are now in a different era. And technology enables you to communicate more efficiently, more effectively. And therefore, I just think it's something that, a
There's
standard
a job for you. There's a job for you over there, mate.
Well, I think they're doing a good job, but they can do a better job. And I just think we need to keep at it.
The messaging job I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're doing good work, but part of it's the messaging. And if you're going to if you're going to worry about marketing and bums on seat, you've got to be covering off. We've already talked about aggregating the viewership that's going on around the world and things like that. All of that's tied into messaging and understanding your market, but in the end, the game's the shop front, and people have got to be able to understand what they're looking at through the window.
So just on that, this time last week we were sort of basking in the reflected glory of what was, Super Saturday, what's been widely described as the best Six Nations ever. Certainly, compelling, entertaining. What parts of it were the highlights for you when you think back on that Six Nations tournament? Because there's a daft criticism from some people around, the defence is no good and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, leaving that to one side, what did you take as, real highlights from the 2025 or 2026 Six Nations?
I was involved in the tipping competition beforehand, so you tipped all the results, and I distinctly remember looking through, and I probably thought there was three or four games that were critical, pivotal in terms of the outcome of the championship. So, I remember the Scotland-England one was one of the pivotal ones, and it turned out to be, for me, that was sort of where the tournament pivoted. England sort of lost its way, and Ireland found its way, and France, they were thereabouts, but they were good enough in the end. But there wasn't much room for error. But there were some good games on the way and unpredictable outcomes. Italy got off to a good start against Scotland, and Scotland was still in the championship hunt in the last, up to the last round. So that was the beauty of the tournament for me. Sometimes it's been a bit too predictable. It was sort of a bit like watching Formula One. You sort of knew who was going to be the top side or the top two sides. But this year I thought it was much more competitive, and you couldn't actually pick the results in the end. And even Wales, they got there in the last round. They were giving everyone a good run for their money as they went along. So the teams built into the tournament quickly. If Ireland had their time again, they got whacked in the first round. That was a pivotal moment for them, but they were still on the hunt in the last round. So. That's what the beauty of the tournament was. There was a lot more teams that were competitive, and so there were no easy games, put it that way. There were no easy games there. Even Wales, who theoretically were an easy game, they weren't. They didn't prove to be easy. They were a difficult side the whole way, and they proved it in the last round.
And certainly the big story emerging out of the last round was the future of the England rugby coach, Steve Borthwick. It seems a week on that that's all calmed down a little bit. Obviously, Michael Checker's name was deliberately floated out there by somebody to see who saluted. Not many did, and it would seem now that they will have this review. But Steve Borthwick is safe and will take England through to the 2027 Rugby World Cup.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. If you looked at the tournament, they were the underperformers in the tournament, based on their squad and whatever. But we saw in every game that there wasn't much in it, and they didn't get it right. But they made some significant changes towards the end, and they were super competitive. They scored 7 tries to 6 in the last game. They lost it, sure, on the bell, but they scored 7 tries to 6. So that tells me you're playing away from home. That tells me that they're not far away, And sure, we knew the run in that they had a great success of a great volume of success running into the tournament. They just didn't get it right on the night in a couple of games, and some of there may be reasons, and I'm sure their review will work it out pretty quickly. I think there's a few selection things that I think the 10. If I look across the teams, there were some settled combinations that they started with Ford, and he'd been very reliable for them. But when they made that change, they instantly became a bit more competitive in terms of the totality of their game. So I think Ford got them to a level on the mount. But I think Finn Smith coming in is probably going to enable them to go a bit further up the mountain. That's what I think. They're going to hit, basically pick and stick and get on with that combination and see what they can get out of that. Because I think there's more on offer there in the long run for them. So a couple of decisions there. Jamie George at hooker. There's probably, with another sort of more dynamic option. If you look at the hookers that are running around in the competitions now, they're fairly dynamic, but he's probably not as dynamic in the ball carry side of things, but he's obviously a good leader. So I think that there's a few players there that are probably coming towards the end of their careers. And then there's, they've got Tojo and these sort of guys who probably under-delivered, and probably possibly for good reason. But he was the captain, and, I see, he's come in for a bit of criticism. That's just the way it is. Everyone's going to have to be accountable and put their hand up. But I think they'll get on with it. They've got a good squad, and they've got good depth, and that probably second to South Africa in terms of the depth of the squad that they've got, assuming everyone's fit. So I think they've got to think about their combinations, the sort of the back row combinations. They've got a lot of similar types of players there. So how they pick that is a challenge for them. But, they've got big backs and they've got a lot of potential, I think. So I think that they should give Borthwick the opportunity to run that through and see how it goes. I think he's done a good job. If you just go on wins and losses, he's been pretty successful in the last period of time.
All right. So listen, we did promise that we would be launching the big three at the end of the Six Nations. And so we are now at launch day. And if you are watching this on YouTube, it's now come up on your screen. And it is an innovation brought to you by Rugby Unity, but more accurately brought to you by Rugby Unity's executive producer, Chris Skipper, who actually knows about technology, understands artificial intelligence, and has composed what I believe is a great innovation and real value to rugby fans around the world, particularly those interested in helping to secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. And what the big three is a aggregation of content from the internet. And so we've got the big three headlines you can see at the top there. Now, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or the other podcasts, you can go to Substack, the Rugby Unity Substack, and register your email, and we will send you each week the big three. And what it is a collection of the very best and the most popular content from around the web about rugby. So it's the leading commentary from the media, and it is the leading discussion on the various social media sites. So we feature the latest programs, and as you can see, as we're just scrolling through there, going to some of the key sites, Planet Rugby, Rugby Pass, the BBC, and some of the others. And what we're doing is gathering, or the agent is gathering the top stories and bringing them to one place. We then have the latest episode of Rugby Unity. In this case, it's with United Rugby fans boss Mark Philpott, and I'd encourage you to have a listen to that if you are a fan of the game and get involved with Mark and his team at United Rugby fans. But then as you roll through, we then pick up the biggest stories and the biggest conversations from the major social media platforms. So Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram. And so there are all of those platforms that you can go to. So effectively, you do not have to go looking for information. You don't have to go looking for the top content, because the big three will bring it to you. And then the last part of the big three is that we preview the fixtures and the results. Again, it's a place where you can go to get all of your rugby news. It will come to you once every week, and you will have to go to the Rugby Unity Substack to put down your email address. You will then become registered, and each week you will receive directly into your inbox the Big Three, which will bring to you what is the most relevant, most topical, most interesting content from around the web. And each week, Eddie Jones, myself, and Ewen McKenzie will be looking at the Big Three and taking topics of conversation so we can talk about what it is that the world of rugby is talking about, fans from around the world. So, and it's free. It is 100% free. Yes, we're still working on the business model for the Rugby Unity. We keep giving things away for free, but that's the way it goes at the moment because it's a good idea. And so we're putting that in place. So to all you rugby fans out there, jump on to Rugby Unity Substack, pop down your email address and you will receive this digest, this artificially intelligent, gathered, curated information. So again, it's all in one place. So you don't have to wait. We're doing the hard work for you, or the agent is doing all the hard work for you in bringing it to one place. So certainly we would be very interested in your feedback, and you can give us your feedback by doing the survey, which is also on the Rugby Unity Substack. And we are continuing to get surveys completed by rugby fans around the world. And thank you very much for your ongoing feedback to the program, because what it does help us to do is to improve the program. So, Ewen McKenzie, another innovation from Rugby Unity, the Big Three.
Oh, well. I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm sick of trawling, trying to find what's current, and going into different websites. I noticed that some of the stuff there's even in French, so I can keep practicing my distant French skills and read some stuff in French. So that's great. I'm really looking forward to getting through that, talking about that, and having something that everyone else can look at and just seeing what's current. When we're sitting down this corner of the world, sometimes you miss things, and you probably miss a lot of things. So hopefully we're going to be right across World Rugby, and hopefully World Rugby subscribes too.
Well, I'm sure they will.
They start reading.
I'm sure they will.
That's good. That's what we want.
But again,
that's the one. One-stop shop. I've been talking about it for a while. That's
indeed.
Good.
So there it is. So a big thanks to Chris Skipper, for really putting that together. And we do hope that you, as fans of the game all around the world, enjoy it as we collectively work together to help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. And, it's been a labour of love so far, and I'm just so pleased that we can bring another innovation. And stay tuned, because we do have more in our kit bag. There's this new technology, this artificial intelligence does allow, enormous productivity and benefit when used responsibly. And, stay tuned, because we do have some more innovations coming your way very shortly. But through the Third Voice and through your participation across the various social media channels, you are regularly giving us your comments and giving us your questions. And over the last couple of weeks, because we were so busy during the Six Nations, we weren't able to get to a lot of your questions. So there has been a bit of a backlog. So today, when we do have a bit more time, we will be taking a number of the questions from the Third Voice. And I look forward to Ewan's views on a number of the questions and comments that have been submitted by you. And please, if you can participate, if you can, give us your views, give us your comments, give us your questions, stimulate debate, stimulate discussion, share, review. What it does is help not only our podcast to be found, but for more people to discover our game, which is exactly what we need to do in order to secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
First question from Jasper449 is about the defence in the Six Nations, and Jasper questions whether or not it was of world-class standard. What is your view on that?
I think you can isolate moments and go, well, that was poor individual defence. But I think rugby's always been a contest, and in the last 20, 30 years, defence in my day, when we were playing, when forwards all had to go to rucks and whatever, and the backs had a lot of room. Defence in my day was like, tackling the tackle bag 4 times at the end of training. That was defence, right? So it's come a long way since then, and so everyone's got a defence coach and the like. Defence in a way is easier to work on because there's no ball involved. You don't actually physically have to catch. You don't have to be able to catch and pass. You just got to be able to tackle. So you can work on the structures. But in the end, you've got to opt, depending on who you're playing against, you've got to opt for, there's risk in whichever way you do it. And there's rush defence, and there's passive defence, and there's umbrella defence. There's all sorts of different systems of defence. And then there's the situation on broken play where you've got to make it up on the run. And so that's being able to work with the guys inside and outside, what you do with your halfback, where your fullback, all those things are variables. So I don't think that there's you can't say that there's one way to defend that's going to cover every scenario, particularly with the advancement in the lateral kick pass, and obviously the development of the kick through by the wingers and the 13, where they just grub it through and behind. Well, defending against that is far more difficult than it was, because they're skills that have been introduced or have been developed in the attacking side of the game. So I don't think you can just say that the defence is substandard. I just think that the attack's improved. Yeah. I think teams have found, and I think the Six Nations has shown the way a little bit, to be honest. Particularly things like the accuracy of the box kicking with the kick contest in the air. All of those things can create unstructured situations where the ball goes loose, and then you've got to play from that situation. Getting your defence organised there is difficult at times, depending on how they kick. And then we know when you watch like France, they'll kick at unusual moments in the game, and so they've obviously watched the tape and picked opportunities in the game where they can put pressure on. So I just don't think it's easy just to say that defence was poor. You can look at individuals and go, you should have made that tackle, no question about that. But the systems of defence, I think it's a good balance, right? Because there's been plenty of times in Super Rugby conferences and stuff, we've had these conversations about, defence dominating in the attacks. The attack wasn't good enough, or was not skillful enough, or whatever. I think there's a good balance at the moment between attack and defence. I think it's actually good. And the other element is fatigue, right? So you can have all the best systems. If you've got fatigue involved, in other words, you pick up the speed of the game, you get multiple phases, you're defending 17, 18 phases, those sorts of things all introduce other elements which compromise your defence. But I think it's a good balance at the moment. We're not just doing, 2 years ago, everyone was just kicking for touch and driving balls over, and all the tries are scored by the hookers. Like, the game's moved on from there. And now we've got the wingers. Who are we talking about again? We're talking about the Fred, we're talking about Louis, and we're talking about Stain. We're talking about the wingers again, because they're the ones scoring tries. We're talking about Jorgensen. And the list goes on. The wingers are back in vogue. And that's how we want the game.
No doubt. I think, for mine anyway, I think it is that point of the quality of the attack and the offload. And the ability to offload and to challenge defences, I think that was a real feature of the Six Nations this year. So
and teams did that. Teams that did that differently, right? Like Ireland were very good at the line, playing at the line, forwards and backs. Each team did that a bit differently. So that's the beauty of the game. There's different ways to win. Yeah. That's what I like about. That's what I always liked about rugby. There's plenty of ways to manage a game, to be able to win and to cover your deficiencies. And obviously focus on your strengths.
All right, so next question, cronies. I respect Ewen McKenzie a lot, but did he really imply that Wales had a better tournament than Italy with his scores? Now, what happened last week, if you weren't following along, Eddie Jones and Ewen McKenzie gave their scores out of 10 for each of the teams, and Cronies has picked you up, Ewen McKenzie. He reckons that your scores suggested Wales better than Italy, or was it more because you have greater expectations of Italy than you did of Wales?
Definitely. Like I didn't score them. The scores were for the team, individual teams, and their, in my mind, their prospects in the tournament. So obviously I scored England worst because I thought they had the best prospects and they had delivered the worst in that sense. But Italy, Wales, no one had any expectations, so I thought they overachieved. And Italy, I had expectations they'd win that last game. I thought they'd win 3 games in the tournament. They came up with 2. So I was just trying to assess it against their squad, their potential, what I thought their potential was, yeah. So I didn't actually look. It wasn't a comparison between teams.
Okay, fair enough. Sinkhole 129 asks you, Ewen McKenzie, what is it that you like about darts?
Well, I used to play a bit in my day. Back in the day, I used to play a bit. Just go to the pub with the boys and play some darts. But then I hurt my neck playing rugby. I was over time and then lost a bit of sensation in my right arm. So then I couldn't play. So then it's been on tournament. It's been on TV a lot. They've obviously got themselves a professional darts. They've got themselves organised, and they've got a pretty good competition structure, and they've really managed to make sort of heroes out of the darts players. And I've just enjoyed watching the tournament. They've got really good different formats, but fundamentally it's quick, and it's I don't go and watch it live. I don't think I've got the. You need an outfit. You need to be horribly drunk. Sit there and watch it live. That's what it seems to be when you look at the audience. But that's the audience that likes to turn up. I just like watching it. I just like the skill. Having played darts in my time, I really appreciate the level of skill, the consistent level of skill, and the pressure that goes. I can't do the maths. No, I can't do the mathematics.
Who's your favourite? Who's your favourite player?
Oh, well, Luke. Obviously, Luke Littler, the young guy, is probably 18 now. I think he's been the world champion the last couple of years. He's just got something. He's got some X factor about him, and he almost plays. He almost plays the game with himself. He tries things in the game that you wouldn't normally expect, and he's a bit of a character. But there's a lot of good players there, and it's on the night. Now, he lost 4 or 5. He lost a bunch of games where he didn't do well, and then suddenly he's back in it. So that's a bit like golf. It's hard to pick who's going to win.
And so in terms of building personalities, have you observed anything that the darts people have done that we could perhaps take or bring across to rugby to build the personalities?
Well, each dart player's got a moniker, and he's got an outfit that he wears. It's the same. Look, so they can the merch side of it's big. If you look online, you'll see that even the actual equipment, the darts and things, but that's obvious. But obviously the merch side, the shirts, the name, the moniker, and the song that they walk out to. The crowd knows it. They all sing along, and and the song's unique to the actual player. So they've done. It's simple, but it works, and it gets the crowd going at the venue, and they've been playing across the world now. They were down in Australia last year and New Zealand and the like, so that it's become a worldwide tournament. And when they travel, they seem to embrace the local dart community, so they all get together and they all play in the Australian Championship, for instance. But it's still the hero guys win, but the local darts players get a chance to play. And much no different to playing in the golf sort of tournament where you play the Australian Open and some of the local golfers get to have a run. So I just think they've got themselves organised pretty well. Turned it for when you watch old footage and what it is now, it's become far more. The marketing side of it is a big part of it. So that's a good thing to watch on TV.
Here's an idea. Why don't we, during Rugby World Cup 2027, have each of the teams compete in a darts competition? They have to send their best darts player, and we organise it in Sydney. at the Horden Pavilion or something like that, and you have everyone there.
I'll turn up for that. That'll be fun. That'll be fun because it's obviously there's no impact.
No.
We can, they drink water these days, and they're not drinking pints when they're throwing. So the crowd is, but not the darts players. But it's a genuine skill. It'd be interesting.
That'd be
to see
fun.
that.
It'd be great to.
I like that. That's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
It's a good idea.
There we go. So
we're gonna have we'll have the World Cup of darts.
Rugby World Cup of
like
darts, and to
thinking.
see who would be the best darts player in.
They've got to put a darts player up. They've got to have so they've got to have a moniker and they've got to have a theme song, right? So they're going to walk out to the song. They need to have some sort of shirt that's got their moniker and their alias. And
there we go.
That'd be good.
There we go. Rugby World Cup organisers.
We'll promote
there you go.
That.
There's an idea for you. Who do you reckon might be? Pick a name. Who might be a good darts player? Do you reckon?
Whoa. Well,
it's got to be Reece Carre.
Reece Carre, I reckon. Yeah, I'd pick him as. I reckon he might have played a few bits. He might have played a bit of darts this time. I reckon. Yeah. I'm hoping. Oh, dear, time for long. Yeah, he'd be good.
Classic. All right, so there you go. Now, Daniel Sandra, a great fan of the program, has been since the early days. He asks, how long will it take for the Wallabies to become bigger, fitter, stronger to take on and win versus either England or South Africa in the 27 quarter final? What needs to happen between now and then? Ewen McKenzie.
Well, I don't think we're not in the genetic production side of things, so we can't wait for 20 years or something to grow the people that are going to match the size of South Africans. It's not going to happen. But there are big guys out there. I was watching the AFL the other day, and they were talking about some guy. It was a ruckman playing for, I think he's playing for Adelaide, I think, and they said, "Oh, he's a rugby guy. He's come across," and they were surprised he could kick the ball, but he did all right. Like he was doing okay, but it kept saying he was a rugby union guy, so he was a big tall guy, so. He's playing AFL, not playing rugby, so that was my first thought. Is we are losing players to other codes. So the physical specimens we need are here. We just got to attract them to the game and keep them in the game. But the game's not set up about. It's not always about size. Like it's the good big guy will beat the good little guy, but you got to be the good little guy has to be beaten with speed and using brains, brawn, all that. It's a combination of that rugby. So you've got to be able to. You can't beat them physically. You've got to find ways to play around that. And it's a challenge, but I don't think Australia suffers in that space at all. I think they've got plenty of talent. It's just a matter of getting the game method right and making sure they haven't got any flat tires out there on the field in attack and defence. We've been competitive in the last period of time. Doesn't take much to turn losses to wins. As long as you can compete, and I think we have been competitive in recent time.
All right. So the next question comes from Martin Tyler, a South African in the UK, and he asks, do you think playing in the drier conditions in Australia during Rugby World Cup 2027 will disadvantage the Northern Hemisphere sides and benefit the Southern Hemisphere sides? And how much of a role? Well, actually, answer that question first, and then I'll ask you the follow-up question.
I don't. What are we talking about? September?
No, October.
We're talking what? October? Yeah, I don't think that's not a particularly. Depending on which part of Australia you're in, I think if you're playing up at
Townsville,
that could Townsville. But apart from that, I think it'll be pretty balanced weather. October can still be cold in Melbourne, so there's a little bit of variation there, but I don't think it's going to favour. I don't think it'll favour. I don't think it'll be compromise the Northern Hemisphere teams at all.
But they don't have the benefit really of playing in the drier conditions or developing their game. So surely that must be an advantage to the Southern Hemisphere teams who are much more used to playing rugby in those conditions because the ball moves in a particular Way.
Sure, but having coached in Europe, like you start the tournaments start up there. They're playing in August, right? And the conditions are pretty good. August, September, they work through, and then you end up in the middle of winter and you're training on, icy and sometimes snow-ridden training fields and things like that, and it is wet. And then then it emerges, and by the time you get back to May, you're playing in good conditions again. So they do experience that. And the other thing is that the top line players, they play on good pitches all the time. They're playing on top line venues with proper drainage. They're not playing in mud patches and the like. So I just think that it's more balanced than it used to be. Yes, I think that would have been a really valid question maybe 30 years ago, but I don't think it's as such an issue at all anymore.
Okay, the follow-up question was about the weather. So anyway, we've answered that question. So Martin Tyler, thank you so much for your question. And again, if I could encourage all of you on the third voice, ask the questions through the survey, which is on Substack, or indeed through social media, and we will pick those questions up and answer them during the week. Now, Fiacra from Ireland says, South Africa hold regular alignment camps. Do other nations hold these but don't announce them? ? Why do countries not announce them if they could be played as a positive story in the media? So these are these alignment camps that take place in season, whether it's while the URC's on or the Prem's on or the, Super Rugby.
My experience over the years has been that I think Australia and New Zealand do that. It's a question of how much physical preparation. And when you talk about alignment, if it's just a matter of discussing and talking tactics and the like, but it has been going on. It doesn't get a lot of fanfare. I know that they have, like in Australia, they always seem to have some sort of World Cup squad or some sort of national squad or squad get together in January, and then sometimes in the World Cup year they meet more often prior to the tournament. So I think it does happen. I don't know about in Europe, but it definitely happens in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, for mine anyway, any opportunity to compete for time and attention needs to be taken by the game, because it is a hostile environment out there, and it doesn't matter whether wherever you are in the world, there is so much competition for eyeballs that we need to, as a sport collectively, globally, working extremely hard on a daily basis to get our stories into the media. Now, yes, social media is very important, but so too is the media. So let's not forget the media, and let's work hard at taking any opportunity that we do have to create stories for the journalists to write and to create picture opportunities for the cameraman to capture. So a word to the wise to everybody working out there in rugby: work hard every day. Get your teams in the media as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think you've got to make it easy. I think that's where coaches have a responsibility to try and make it easy for the media, and you've got to provide have a pool camera, put feed out there so that it's easy for them to get it onto the news that night. There are simple methods to do that, but if you want to lock the team away and hide them, and the media doesn't see anything, then they won't report anything. No. So it really, and that depends on the country. That might suit, maybe that suits South Africa or something like that. But generally speaking, it's just a matter of making it easy for the media to turn up.
Oh, look,
and you'll get a story.
I think the South African team at the moment, from what I've seen under Rassie Erasmus, they're very good about providing access to the media. I think he well understands the benefits to the game and indeed to his team. So, yeah, let's see more of that. Okay, Kay Lee, one of his gripes is about scoring tries closer to the posts when attackers can, either, there's no defenders in front of them and they just place the ball down not close to the posts. And obviously we had the Ollie Chessum incident against France where he made a beeline for the corner post. I had absolutely no problem with that because he didn't have time to check out who was chasing him down.
No, he had time to check out, wave to the crowd, so he had time to look. So I don't really I'm.
What about you? Do you think?
Keep going with the question. Mate, you've got to get. From a playing point of view, you dive to score. I watch with trepidation. I watched it on the weekend in Super Rugby where fantastic lead-up work's done, and the guy gets over. I think McKenzie did with the Chiefs. They get over the try line and they stand there, and it's a bit like 7, and then they put the ball down with one hand, just stop the thing down. I'm just going, this is just a recipe for disaster. Like you just dive, hold the ball with 2 hands and dive on the ground so you make sure you definitely score it, you don't drop it.
But what about going around closer to the post? Do you think you should always be going to the post?
Yeah. I think if you've, those situations in the Chesham one where, he made a against the run and play line break. So he had pretty clear space. He had plenty of time to change his angle and get around that way, or should have been looking to do that, because ultimately the 2 points, the conversion, so it's part of the scoreboard. Like it's an easy 2 points. So why wouldn't you be going for why wouldn't you be trying to grab that? I see too many games are lost when conversions are missed. So you've got to be out of respect for your kicker and respect for the game. You've got to try and make every point easy to score, and this, by the same token, in defence, you want to force that guy to score. If they're going to score a try, you want them to score right in the corner and make it the most difficult conversion kick possible. So you're trying to do that as well. So chasing the guy down and forcing him further away from the goalpost is part of the training as well.
All right, Kay Lee, when you next see someone score the try and not go towards the post, understand that Ewen McKenzie is with you, Kay Lee, in your frustration.
I hate it.
Now, listen, just as we come up against time, just a final question, and this one is from James. And he asks, will the Iran-Israel war disrupt the nation's championship?
You would think so. It's obviously a way off, and hopefully things maybe get sorted before then. But, if Dubai being, some of the hub airports being under pressure, that makes a big difference. You can fly around the other way. So there are alternates, but there's a cost to that. If you suddenly you're going to change bookings on airlines, et cetera, and sponsorship and things like that. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of flow on there. And there's just risk. I mean, at the moment, it's all up in the air, and it's all a bit random. So yes, you'd think it would have, but you'd like to think that by the time that come around, there's some sort of sanity and order restored, so that it's not an issue. But yeah, I'm sure that they're having conversations about that. They're working on their plan Bs and Cs as we speak, just to make sure that they've got it covered.
We already saw the disruption where Nick Berry from Australia, the referee, was unable to travel to Europe to referee that final match between England and France. You can imagine how dirty he would have been. Would have been one of the highlights of his refereeing career. And poor old Nick was, sent off to some Super Rugby match somewhere rather than being at the Stade de France. So, yeah, there'd be no doubt, James, in my mind, that there would be all sorts of discussions taking place at the moment.
We're talking about the teams, but obviously fan base, supporters following, the channels, the opportunities to get tickets and things to get to the other side of the world would be compromised. If the fans want to follow their teams and actually support them. So, there's going to be disruption. You just like to think that it's going to be sorted by then. We've got 3 months.
Yeah.
So hopefully some sanity prevails.
Well, let's hope so. And to everybody out there, please stay safe wherever you are in the world, and deal with the disruption and the challenges of petrol pricing, food pricing, and everything else that goes with it. Yes, indeed, be kind to each other, because I think we're in for a fairly rough time over the next little bit. So, anyway, just a couple of things before we do go. Ewen McKenzie, the Women's Six Nations kicks off on the 11th of April. Round 1, France takes on Italy in Grenoble. England plays Ireland in London, and Wales against Scotland in Cardiff. Already for the Red Roses game at Twickenham, or Allianz Stadium, they have sold more than 60,000 tickets for that opening weekend of the Women's Six Nations, and we get to see all of these wonderful athletes who we got to know during the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup. They come back onto the big stage, and so that will be a tournament that we will be following closely, and it will be interesting to see Ewen McKenzie where the different teams are in terms of their development. England, obviously, the world champions now and very strong. But France, I thought, were very good in the tournament, and I imagine with a bit more time they will have improved. Wales and Scotland had some work to do, probably a bit disappointed with their Rugby World Cup performances, but certainly something to look forward to, the Women's Six Nations.
Having been there, once you win a World Cup, everyone's gunning for you. So that's what happens. They're the benchmark side, so everyone's going to be coming for England, including France, and they'll get a chance. So that'll be a big game. So you've got to defend this notional idea of being the world champions. I know it's a World Cup, but you're the world champion team.
Yep.
So you've got to defend that. So you got to get used to the fact that everyone's coming for you. Everyone's micro-analysing you. And it's hard yakka. You just don't get to keep on winning. And I remember after 91, we played a series against New Zealand. We got there, but geez, it was tight. And then we played South Africa in 93. We went to South Africa in 92.
Yep.
And we beat them over there. But then they came out for a 3-test series. It was 2-1, but it was hard. Geez, they were hard work. The 92, 93 seasons after we won the World Cup, well, they were the hardest seasons to play because everyone just plays you as you're the world champions and we're coming to get you, mate. That's what it is. And everyone's benchmarking against you. Everyone's micro-analysed how you play, and they come with tactics and the whole kit and caboodle. So it's a real challenge to defend your honour. To keep on doing it. You got to keep on doing it. You don't just get this idea where you win a tournament. No, you got to keep defending it after that because you're the world champion till the next one.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 years of hard yakka. So it'll be a good test for England.
And we saw...
And good to see if anyone can step up, see if France can kick to the next level based on the exposure that happened in last year's World Cup.
Well, certainly the standard at the 2025 Women's Rugby World Cup was outstanding. And as you say, to see everybody now chasing, England's out there, but everyone's after them. So we'll certainly be giving a lot of time and coverage to the Women's Six Nations and certainly looking forward to that. So Ewen McKenzie, thank you so much once again for joining us on Rugby Unity, a podcast with a very simple mission. We are trying our part to help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world, looking at issues on the field and off the field. And we'll continue those discussions. And there is, on the 27th of March, my interview with the CEO of World Rugby, Alan Gilpin. And I can tell you it's a great chat. Lovely bloke, lovely rugby bloke, very competent and, really across his brief. And it's well worth the time to have a listen because, again, from the top, from the leadership, when we do get those opportunities to speak to people like Alan Gilpin and Brett Robinson, we do hear what is happening from the top. And anyway, it's a wide-ranging conversation, and I do hope that you enjoy it. So in the meantime, please, if you'd like to jump on social media, like, subscribe, share, any way that you can contribute to the program being found by more people, we would be grateful for that. And please, as always, keep the questions coming and also to do the survey. But most importantly now, get involved in the big three. Jump across to Rugby Unity, onto the Substack, hand over your email address and you will be given the best digest in World Rugby, the one-stop shop for all of the latest, most popular, most influential, most interesting content in World Rugby. It will be yours for the cost of nothing more than your email address. So on Rugby Unity Substack, go there and register. So thank you for coming back once again. Very grateful for your time. Eddie Jones will be back with us next week. But until then, people, please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke, and it's bye for now.